I'm Vernon L. Bowling, and welcome to another edition of Focus. As I hope you know, Focus has been on the air for over 40 years. We've been continuing to bring you, the African American community, problems, accomplishments, as well as successes that we've had within the African American community. Don't touch that remote. Matter of fact, you can get your pencils or papers together and write down some information that we're going to give to you that's going to be very important that you probably can use later. We'll be right back with more Focus after these messages.
What would you do if you had to choose between the buffalo and the giraffes? Between a flower or an elephant? What would you choose? What if you had to decide between a 100-year-old tree and a 1,000,000-year-old beach? Between drinking clean water or breathing clean air? Would you make the right choice? Would there be a right choice? Now there's a way to help. Not just one, but all these things. EarthShare, the world's leading environmental groups working together. It's one choice we can all live with. Ask your employer about workplace giving.
Hi, welcome to Focus. I'm Fatima Halim. We have a lot of people in our community who are doing some really good things. Sometimes people say the black community is not together. The black community isn't doing things that they should be doing. Well, I challenge that statement and I challenge that belief because I know so many people in our community who are doing incredible things, from the arts to social justice to cooking. I mean, everything. We're doing everything to make a difference in our community. And with me today is one of these people. His name is Frank Crump, and he is the president of Unified Progress International Education. Frank has been doing this work for quite some time, and I'm very, very happy that he agreed to join us today because I know that your schedule is off the chart. So thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are so people can kind of get to know you? Because how long have you been in the Valley?
Been in the Valley for the last 14 years
For
now.
14 years?
Yes.
And I know a lot of people know you, but a lot of people don't know you. So why don't we introduce you to our community?
All right. Well, yes, I moved here 14 years ago. Actually moved here from Singapore. I lived and worked in Asia for more than 20 years, initially in the defense business, and then started businesses of my own in Singapore. Married a Singapore woman, had 2 children born in Singapore. My youngest daughter is living and working in Singapore now, and my youngest son is a student here at ASU. So, but I've been an entrepreneur the majority of my life.
So let's go beyond Singapore. Mm-hmm. Let's go before Singapore. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about your history, your background.
Before Singapore, I was one of the founders of a manufacturing company in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, called United Chemcon Corporation, which went on to become one of the top 100 black businesses in America. Prior to that, I was a student at Franklin and Marshall College, a pre-med student. Finished my pre-med requirements in 3 years instead of the normal 4. Went to school in India, where I did an independent study on Ayurvedic medicine. Came back from India, had interviews at Yale, Johns Hopkins, and Hahnemann Medical School. But I got involved in a multi-level marketing company called Holiday Magic. Made a bunch of money in a short period of time with them, and that got me hooked in the line of business. I was about 20 years old at that time. So that brought me into my entrepreneurship. And back in from that is growing up in New Haven, Connecticut. So.
Okay, but now this is a far stretch from pre-med to Singapore to now you're working with youth. Mm. Now, how did that switch happen?
The youth part, I was thinking just the other day, I never really thought I'd be doing this. We're working with youth, nonprofit especially. But I had made a promise when I went over to Singapore to Jim Brown, the former great running back with the Cleveland Browns, that one day I would come back and work with him, and we would try to do something to help the people in our community. And it was 20 some odd years later, but I kept my word to Jim. I came back to the States, left my family in Singapore, and I worked with him in his nonprofit called the AmeriCan program, helping to broker peace among the gangs in LA and going into the prisons, working with youth. And I enjoyed the work. I was the number 2 guy in Jim's organization, involved with the day-to-day. I had one issue, and that was, as I said to Jim one day, we're catching these kids after they become gang members and after they get locked up, which was good because we were still changing their lives, but I felt there was a need to be proactive. And so with that, I left AmeriCan. I started UPI, Unified Progress International Education. And we are, in fact, proactive. We have a life skills curriculum, which we teach the kids from middle school to high school, starting in the 5th grade, college students. We've trained adults, parents, as well as teachers. And our aim is to provide life skills to those who, in this day and age, there are a lot of people that are really lacking in life skills. And it really shows up pretty much in our business world, where I know for a fact that Disneyland once said that they hire kids in the summertime, they give them their clothing, they give them room and board, they pay them a good salary, but they don't get up in the morning and show up to work. So therein lies an issue and a problem which it permeates through a lot of HR departments as well. We try to overcome that by giving these life skills curriculum training to starting them at an early age, and then working them all the way through, and working with adults as well, to help them to work with our partners who will be corporations working to looking to hire and bring these people on board.
So you're providing actually training to send our young folks into corporate America or into entrepreneurship.
Exactly.
I'm sure you're doing all of that. So how do you do that? How do you provide this service? Are you going into the schools? Do you have a program where, or a facility where they come to you? How are you doing this?
Our program is designed so that we actually do go into the schools. Our program has been taught in schools as an accredited class where they actually get a grade, so it's like any other class. We've taught our program as an after-school program. We've taught it during school time. We have also run summer camps in the summer where we've taken some of the kids from here in Phoenix, as a matter of fact, up to the Sedona area and camped out with them through our summer camp program. This last summer we partnered with a couple of nonprofit organizations here in town, and on the ASU campus we had 116 youth from 2nd grade to 11th grade going through a STEM training program. Karen Crawford and Denise Meredith with their organizations along with UPI pulled that off and had a great time and a great camp as well.
So tell me about your classes. What are you offering?
The curriculum itself, the first chapter of our curriculum is called First You Are Born. And that came about as a result of a time when I was working with AmeriCan and had run into a young kid who had shot and killed some people. And his response was, "And I will kill you too." And that was shocking. He was, about 12 years old.
Oh.
And so I began to realize then that, as we used to say when I was growing up, we're all born like a blank piece of paper. And our impressions, our family, our environment, those things begin to make us who we are. So with that, our first chapter, as I said, is called First You Are Born, to impinge and imply that to the youth that they are all born like a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper. And from there we talk about family. We talk about going their first day of school, if you will. We talk about, and not necessarily in this order, but getting a passport, traveling. What is a GPA? And then, like most life skills, we also talk as we move along about resume writing and how to prepare for an interview. College, we take them really through a basic impingement, if you will, on life itself, from the time they're born to discussing marriage and children and the cost to have that, to discussing, as I say, college, job, and beyond. When I say beyond, we also talk about death and having to deal with death. So we truly have a full breadth of life and life skills as we take them through their walk by way of our facilitators who utilize our curriculum. And in fact, every course is different, every classroom is different, and we do this, as I said, in the schools for the most part. But at the end of the day, we can look at a child or an adult and say, now we know that you know, and you know that you know. So you can't say you don't know anymore when it comes to making decisions. Your decisions should be far better and far greater on the positive side than on the negative.
So you work with young people, you say from grades 2 to 11.
Well, we've done that, yes.
But you separate them, of course, based on the ages, and I would think that you adapt your materials based on the age
Exactly.
and grade level of the young person.
Yes.
How's that working out?
Well,
I mean, really, just
yeah.
and I ask that question not facetiously.
Sure.
I ask that because we have some challenges in our community, not only with our children, but with those who are impacting our children, with our teachers and our children, and other sources out there. We're having challenges in the schools. We're having challenges in the street to our children. We're just having a lot of challenges. So how is UPI working? How is that working for our kids?
When we first started UPI, and the first time we did our training was actually in Connecticut. And I said, being an entrepreneur, that if I can't measure results, positive results, then there's no point in me continuing on with this. That was 14 years ago. What we began to do is we looked at the kids' grades before they took our class and after. We looked at their attendance record before and after, as well as their disciplinary records, if they were suspended from school, before and after our training program. And what we found and gathered through school data is that on average, kids' grades went up 16.4%. Their attendance went up 27%. Now they're attending school because they know the value of school, they know why they're in school, and they have a better appreciation for their teachers as well. And then we found the disciplinary actions was 0. So with that type of result, with those types of numbers, one, you ask how is it working? It works to that degree. We have on our website, which is UPIEducation.org, a number of students that we've interviewed after they've taken our program. And if one were to look at those, they would see for themselves what, as they say, out of the mouths of babes, the results speak for themselves.
So I really want us to really start getting into just talking about our kids. You sound like you're doing some wonderful work. Do you get any resistance at all from the parents or from the schools or from some of the teachers? Because if the school brings you in, apparently they want you there. But sometimes you may get resistance from parents. You may get resistance from. Have you ever ran into any type of resistance?
The resistance that we've run into, believe it or not, is not from the parents. It's not from the teachers or the principals.
From the kids?
No, not even from the kids. The kids love our course.
Okay.
In fact, kids that are not in our classroom, they come into the classroom anyway because they want to be there because of what they're hearing from the other kids. So it's just the contrary. Any pushback that we have had in the past, though, has pretty much been from the district itself or the superintendents who have their own ideology, their own beliefs, their own plan, their own lessons in mind. And sometimes they might look at what we do without full understanding or knowledge and look at what we're doing as something that might be contrary to their thoughts.
Whatever those may be.
Yeah, so, but aside from that, I think that everyone would agree that once we're in the school and once we're providing our training, whether it's in school or after school or at any point, that the classes are fun, they're enjoyable, and they're meaningful.
Now, how long is your course?
The curriculum itself is 12 chapters.
So is that 12 weeks, 12 sessions, 12 classes?
Yeah, it can be 12 weeks. We can do a chapter a week. We tailor it typically to the school's requirements. And sometimes the school has specific areas that they want us to address. Maybe bullying might be one. In some cases also, principals have had us come in to teach to train their teachers in terms of being able to have a social responsibility and an understanding of the students who may be minority and they may not be minority themselves. So we can tailor it, as I say. We can take one chapter, to be honest with you, and we could do a whole 6 months on one chapter alone, based on the way that we deliver the curriculum. So,
Now, how many people work with you on your staff?
we train 15 facilitators here in Arizona. And our aim going into 2018 is to increase the number of facilitators, to increase the work in the number of schools that we're in, but also to increase the number of companies that we will be working with as we begin to put not just students in terms of young people, but the elderly as well, the adults as well, into jobs.
When we return, Frank is going to kind of give us some insight on some of the new things that he's going to be doing, which is very exciting for our community. So take a break.
We want to share that with our kids, that love for being outdoors, and that's what we're doing. Seeing them run around and pick up a stick and be like, look at this, Daddy. They get their little lanterns and they walk around with those and looking at bugs and hearing noises and wondering what everything is. I mean, that's kind of what it's all about. Frankly, I didn't really know that the lottery supports natural preservation. So it's a big plus of playing.
What would you do if you had to choose between the buffalo and the giraffes, between a flower or an elephant? What would you choose? What if you had to decide between a 100-year-old tree and a 1,000,000-year-old beach? Between drinking clean water or breathing clean air? Would you make the right choice? Would there be a right choice? Now there's a way to help. Not just one, but all these things. EarthShare, the world's leading environmental groups working together. It's one choice we can all live with. Ask your employer about workplace giving.
Thanks for coming back. I'm Fatima Halim and you're watching Focus, and we're here with the president of Unified Progress International Education, Frank Crump. And Frank was telling us some incredible things that y'all have done and continue to do in our schools and in our community. But I'm really excited about your next phase of UPI. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yes, the next phase actually started in 2017. We did and brought in and had a strategic planning session for our organization. So that was huge for us. We also decided that we would take 2017 to gear ourselves up and prepare ourselves for 2018. So inasmuch, we've brought on board, starting January 1st, Eddie Tantoko, who's a former vice president of Marriott Hotels. He's coming on as our CFO. We're also bringing in Leslie Carpenter. She's been an executive with the Children's Defense Fund in Washington, D.C. She'll be our executive director. And we also started in 2016, we're about a year in now, we started what we call the Constellation. Constellation is a number of leaders. You mentioned earlier that there are a number of people here in town that are doing great things. A lot of them are doing those things, as I had seen, in silos. So they're doing great things, but it's in their certain area and there may be overlap. So what we did is at UPI is we called in a number, 36 of these type people to start, and brought them together and said we need to begin to look at areas of education here in town, economic development in town, as well as civic and community engagement. Those are the three key areas for what we call, again, the Constellation. The Constellation has grown from those 36 people to now over 200 people, such leaders and community activists that are involved with us. So we're excited about what's going to happen with that in 2018. And then lastly, social economics, if you will. our aim is to expand beyond just the training and education of our youth, of our parents, of our teachers, but also as we expand that, we want to begin to, certainly as I mentioned earlier, help them in getting jobs, but we also want to help, there are a lot of people that have to go to payday to get a loan and pay exorbitant interest rates. We're looking to do something in the financial field ourselves so that we can help people who are in need of finding capital for either their personal use or to start a business or something along those lines. We think this will be great for the economy, great for Arizona, and help us to begin to make Arizona's reputation go up, not just in the areas of helping its people, but also in the areas of certainly education, where we've been very low, and also in the areas of employment.
When I was in economic development, and I was in the small business, working with small businesses at the time, and one of the things that we found was the challenge, the most difficult thing for small businesses was access to capital. And it was very difficult for them to find loans or to get loans, or banks just wouldn't trust them. And there just wasn't anything out there. So I'm excited to hear about about what you're doing in regards to access to capital. Now, when are you going to start this? Because I know a lot of businesses are going to want to know.
Well, we're going to start it in the early part of the 2018.
Okay,
Yes.
so they'll just be able to, are you going to have
They'll know about it.
Okay. So will you have a facility? Will you have a bank? Will you have a building?
We have a location where we're partnering with a major organization here in town. And I don't want to give too much out at this
Sure,
point
of
in
course.
time, but certainly we will be promoting what we'll be doing. So your public and your people that watch your show will certainly have an opportunity to know.
So the criteria for accessing this money, will it be as stringent as the banks?
No, not really. In fact, we're taking into account the realization that the people we'll be lending to are probably not going to be in a position to get money from the banks. So obviously we can't be as stringent as they would be. So we'll have lax, but also there will be some constraints, if you will. There will be some controls. But our aim is to really look at and help develop the people and the community at large.
Well, I'm excited about this, and we're going to make sure that at the end of the program you'll be able to see or get the information about UPI and how you can talk to Frank about this new program as well as his existing programs. But I want to go back to the 200 organizations that you have engaged in this, because I haven't heard of it, being an organization myself. And I'm glad to hear that there are 200 that you're engaged with. But tell me a little bit about that and what your ultimate goal is with these 200 organizations, and what are y'all doing?
I'll give you some examples. The Arizona Center for African American Children is one such organization that's very keen on promoting the fact that our juvenile justice system here in Arizona has been disproportionately locking up African American
And I
kids.
have never heard of them.
Yes.
How old are they?
2
They
years,
they're
last 2
relatively
years.
new.
Yeah,
Okay.
with Roy Dawson heads them up.
Okay.
Then we have Demand to Learn, Luis Avila, who's also doing a lot of things with the ACLU in terms of, again, justice in town.
So this is just a collective of organizations that are doing their thing, but not necessarily, well, I shouldn't say not necessarily. Are y'all doing a collective thing?
Yeah, the whole key here, Fatima, is, as I said, they were working in their silos.
Of course.
And not everyone knew what others were doing.
Or that they even existed.
Or even that they existed. Our aim is to begin to fill that gap. We have Diana Gregory with what she's doing with all the food for the seniors and the veterans. Diana's another one that we're looking to work with and expand her operation, and also expand some of the other groups that may be able to work in conjunction.
Well, I'm excited about learning about more about that and to possibly even being engaged in some way, helping out in any way that I possibly can.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of time left. I mean, it went by so quickly, Frank.
Yes.
So for this last few moments, just what is it that you think is imperative that the community knows, and some insights that you can give them, particularly those parents who are raising sons and daughters who are teenagers and who are faced with all of the things, they're navigating life very carefully. So what is it that you want to share with them?
That there is hope. That to the parents, that UPI does have a plan, and it does work. And I would suggest that if you have a child, and we're not necessarily talking about children that are need disciplinary actions. We're talking all kids.
All children.
Our program is good and will make any child better. In terms of our society, I think it's imperative that our foundations and corporations and community investment realize that they must step up. I know if we talk about 200 organizations under the Constellation or UPI umbrella, they're not all African American. It's a multitude of different disciplines, a multitude of different types of people as well. The community must begin to realize that they've got to put money into these nonprofit organizations.
I totally agree, which is one of the reasons why I am a big supporter of the Black Philanthropy Initiative and REAP, which is one for African American boys, where they're funding small organizations as well as African American women's empowerment and giving circle. So thank you. I totally agree with you. And I love what you do, and keep it up, and we are going to be working together, I'm sure, at some given point in time.
All right.
Well, that's all for us here at Focus. However, we'll be back. But in the meantime, take care of yourself, take care of your families, and make sure that you reach out to people next to you and give them as much love and compassion as you possibly can. I'm Fatima Halim, and thank you for watching Focus.
Thank you for joining us for another edition of Focus. And if you'd like to contact us, if there's a topic you'd like to see us present or someone you'd like us to talk to, the information is right up on the screen. So thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week. Same station, same time, and Focus continues.